Let's continue working on our Rook card view. We'll focus on the view class and we'll do some preliminaries here, getting some constants and computed properties in here, and we'll start outlining the draw methods. And we'll also, before this video is over, figure out how to get our storyboard to see what our custom UI view class looks like. Okay, so back to work. Now let me remind you that we have all of these values like A and B and C and D here. These ought to depend on the size of the card. And so I'm going to create a set of computed properties that bases each of those on the width of the bounds of the card. Okay, so let's go get to work. Okay, into the code here. Now, because there's a lot of code to type here, I'm just going to copy and paste some stuff from my other sources. And you're welcome to pause the video and type it in, or you're welcome to go and copy this from GitHub yourself. Okay, so we're going to have some computed properties here. Let's copy and paste those in. Computed. I cannot type today. Okay, and so here are all those computed properties. Then we're going to want to have some drawing methods. And draw will be, whoops, why didn't it? Draw, there we go. That will be our default. Okay, now, when we go about a complex process, like maybe drawing a Rook card, it helps to do a thing called top-down decomposition. I would like to describe what it means to draw a card in just a few lines, and I'd like to write methods that document what I'm doing here. So my first method is going to be draw base card. And that's, so the white background, whether I'm face up or face down, I have a white background with rounded rectangles to draw. Then the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, look, now I need some properties here. The properties being is face up is going to be a Boolean. I'm going to set that to true by default. I need a rank, and I'm going to set that to 1 by default. And I need a suit. I'm going to set that to green by default. And now I can say, look, if my card is face up, then we need to draw face up. Otherwise, we need to draw face down. Okay, so let's go outline those. So private function, and this will be draw base card. That's going to do some stuff. Private function draw face down. Draw face up. Okay, and I have my outline of what needs to happen there. Now, in class, I showed you the essence of what we need to do for drawing the base card. We're going to go create a rounded rectangle, and we're going to build a UI Bezier path that is a rounded rectangle Bezier path. So this constructor right here, we're going to take our bounds, and we're going to say, let's use the So up here we have a corner radius that turns out to be 5% of the width of the bounds. So that corner radius value is what we'll pass into that. And then we're going to say to our graphics context, oh, rounded rect, I need an ED. There we go. We're going to say to our graphics context, I want you to add clip. So anytime you draw something, be sure you don't draw outside of this rounded rectangle shape that I'm providing for you now. That's what this line of code at line 63 does. Next thing we want to do is we want to fill this with white. So we're going to say, white, would you please be the fill color? And then finally, we're going to say UI rect fill, and we're going to fill the entire bounds with this. But because it gets clipped to the rounded rectangle, we won't see the white into the corners. So we run this, and we're eager to see the very first effect of our little project here, and we get sharp corners. What? Why do we get sharp corners? Well, go look at the storyboard, and you see that this view over here is set to have a white background, and it's opaque, and so we're seeing that white background showing through. If I change it to clear color and tell it this is not opaque, it's transparent, which you need to do. It's non-deterministic if you don't set this to the right value. Anyway, now if I run it, I am going to see the rounded corners because I have green showing through. It's transparent now. But that's a little bit of a pain to say, oh, you better make sure when you drag this into the storyboard and you set this up as a Rook card view that you remember to set it to the clear color. No, we ought to do that in code. And so what we need is one more section in here called initialization. So mark initialization. And let's provide ourselves with an init method. So we always call our super, and the frame is going to be frame. And now the pattern for this is, let's see, what mistake did I make? Hang on. Oh, I didn't say .init. Yeah, super.init. There we go. The pattern for initialization is that you always call a private method to do whatever additional setup you want to do. So we're going to call private function setup here that there are two things we need to do. Set the background color to clear, UI color.clear, and we need to make sure that opaque flag is set properly. So we're saying we are not opaque. That means the compiler can't optimize certain things. We just can't assume that it's opaque. Okay, now it is complaining that there's an initializer I didn't provide, and I can do this little fix-it here, and it inserts that initializer for me. So rather than having a fatal error and killing, let's just say, hey, super, would you please init according to the coder specification here, and we'll pass in that coder, sorry, a decoder. And now we can also call our same setup method, and so that'll work. Now if I run, actually let me go back to the storyboard and let me set it back over here to white and opaque, whoops, and opaque. And now if I run it, you'll still see that I have rounded rectangles because my initializer takes care of clearing it to transparent. Now the next piece is, wouldn't it be nice if my storyboard could show me what my card looks like? And the answer is yeah, it sure would be nice. So if I go to my Rook card view class and I come up to the top and I say @IB designable, what that does is that marks this as a signal to Interface Builder that, hey, you ought to use what's in this view and display accordingly. And now the problem is I still have to set it to clear color and check that opaque flag to see those rounded corners here in this view. Let's zoom in so that you can see a little more carefully that, yeah, I actually do have transparent corners going on there. So there's one more piece of code in here, and that is in the initialization section. Let me add a thing called prepare for interface builder. Prepare for interface builder is like an initializer, but it only gets called when we're inside of interface builder. So let's call our super prepare for interface builder, and let's call our same setup that sets those two flags. And so now back to the storyboard, I can set this view to whatever color I want it to be. And let's go back to, let's go back to white and check it as opaque here. And you see I still have the rounded rectangle corners. Okay. Now, one last little bit here, and that is that I would like to be able to see the properties of this card and play with them like I can play with all of these other properties like background and tint and so forth. So if I make my properties inspectable, that is the secret. So @IB inspectable. Now, oh, come on, copy and paste and paste. I've discovered that I need to also provide a type annotation for these IB inspectables because Interface Builder hasn't been able to figure this out the way the compiler does. But anyway, now having done this, I go back to the storyboard and it says, oh, you've got a Rook card view. Well, you have this, you can set face up or face down. I can choose on, off, or just let it pick whatever the default is. I can specify a rank. I can say this is 9. And I can specify a suit. I can say, well, give me yellow. All right. Anyway, I can set all of those properties right there in Interface Builder as if it were a native control. So that's kind of cool. All right. In the next video, we will continue with the drawing methods and figure out how we can actually draw some more stuff on this card.